Cascade Hoops Talk. This is Billy D. We're going to begin the interview with Terrell Alfred from Jamestown University in just one moment. I wanted to take this time to congratulate Kyle Mangus, Indiana Wesleyan University, as the 2020 recipient of the Bevo Francis Award. This award is presented to the best small college basketball player in the nation. Kyle Mangus is a wonderful ambassador for himself, his family, his faith, Indiana Wesleyan, as well as the NAI. Congratulations, Kyle. He's a terrific basketball player and an even better person. The interview with Terrell will just start in one moment. Thank you. Cascade Hoops Talk, Billy D. Join us on Twitter, Cascade Hoop Talk. Call your mom and dad, find out how they are. Call your grandma and grandpa, find out how they're doing. Hey, today we have Terrell Alfred. He's a all-conference guard, Jamestown Jimmies. Terrell's a sharpshooter, scored more than 472 points this season. He hit 101 three-pointers. Terrell's from Orlando, Florida. He shot better than 43% behind the arc. And I love a guy who can hit a free throw. Terrell shot better than 80% from the line for his time at Jamestown. Welcome, Terrell. I appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So, Terrell, you grew up in Orlando, Florida. You played high school ball at Colonial High School. You talk about your basketball experience in high school.
So, I moved to Florida because I'm originally from New York City. I moved to Florida my senior year. I didn't really play much. I came off the bench. I did what I was asked. I couldn't shoot back then. It was more running gun, throw the ball ahead, open layups. It was an interesting time just because just how it went. We had a losing season. So it wasn't really the most fun time, I'd say, coming out of high school. But I always remember it because we had our senior night and the first thing I said was when I told the announcers, they asked me for what you want to do and everything like that. The first thing I said was I want to play college basketball. It didn't really matter where. I just knew I just wanted to play. And having coming out of high school with no film or anything like that, it was harder. So I had to go to schools and actually work out. And there was a time where I thought I wouldn't be able to play college basketball, and I almost gave up on it. But
you didn't really have a resume. You didn't have a film file. You ended up going to Dakota State. I'm going to say it wrong, but Bottineau.
Yes.
And it's a JC. Talk about your time there. You played there for 1 year.
Yeah. So around, I think it was 2016, I was sitting at home and I got a call or a text from Coach Brock, which we're still pretty close to this day. He gave me my start and my foot in the door with college basketball. So when I got up there and I went blind, I just went. I didn't think about it. It was the only thing I had. I didn't think about it. I just took a leap of faith and went. Didn't go on any visits. I get there, hardest conditioning I ever had to do in my life. Starting out preseason stuff, riddled with knick-knack injuries, shin splints and everything like that. But I played through all that stuff just because I love playing basketball so much. But we had a positive year. I think we were finished around the same as what we finished this year, around 18 and 13 or something like that when I was there. It was an experience because of how life was there. Tiny town like Jamestown, but smaller, just a little bit smaller. Nothing much to do coming from a bigger city. So you can imagine when you first get there, it's a little odd, the way of life. But I picked up on it pretty fast. I was there for basketball. I knew that. And I ended up staying there, ended up turning into one of the go-to guys. They knew me because at that point in time I came in and I can shoot well, I can drive well, but I wasn't the best player there yet until we had two guys got kicked off our team, and then I had to step up, and I stepped up pretty well, and I ended up averaging about 20 for him for the entire year. Just when we thought we were rolling and thought we were gonna make it to the NJCAA national tournament for D2 level. I fractured my left foot last 4 games, missed it, lost in the playoffs. That was that. Came back from it, and we were playing open gyms, and I had all intentions of signing back, but then something told me I have a mentor, and he told me pretty much, like, let's try to get you somewhere where like you're not the best player there, and you can really learn like in the system and everything like that. So that kind of prompted my move to Seward County in Kansas.
So Seward County was they were a little bit more competitive and probably something that would build your skills a bit faster, kind of challenge you, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I mean, Botno was a challenge itself, but with Seward, that's when I really learned kind of how to play defense a bit, like a lot more, because I played for a defensive coach, Coach Jason Sauter, while I was over there, and he was probably one of the most passionate coaches compared to like Coach Neville. But each coach is different in their own way. But he was one of those coaches that were, no matter in practice, we're gonna get everything done, no matter how tired you guys are, no matter what, because at the end of the day, it's that's what it's going to come up to: who's the most tired at the end of games and who can pull it out, who can execute. So I learned grit when I got there
So
and how to
Terrell,
just push it.
let me ask you a question about that. When you left Dakota State Botno and you went to Seward County, uh,
Hmm.
what did you learn at Seward County about being a defensive player that you thought you knew but you found out you didn't know?
Yeah. Mostly talking. I mean, I always knew they were like about talking, but like the way how to talk effectively and to try to do it all the time. I've had my lapses here and there, not being able to talk, especially being tired, and that's a tough thing to handle. But the more you talk, the better chance you have of playing better defense. You kind of you talk yourself through it. You say you're gonna do this, and your body just naturally does it because you talk yourself through it. So I picked that up. I picked on how to be scrappy and dive on balls and just don't back down from any challenge.
So you played 1 year at Seward County. So what kind of year did you guys have?
It was a startup. Every the year before, Coach Sauter, he got there the same year we all did, and he didn't bring anyone back. So we had a fresh team, fresh coaching staff, everything. It was all brand new. So with players that from all like just walks of life, there was definitely the tallest team I've been a part of. We had two 7-footers, a few 6'8" guys, a lot of guards that were 6'4", 6'5". We just had like a talented team, but we weren't able to ever fully put it together. So we had a very average year, but it was again it was an experience, just that level and seeing the people we played against and how athletic they were and like the stuff they did were like ridiculous. Like, I've never seen some people jump that high or go up
Yeah.
that high and block some shots, and it was a different game coming into Jamestown. But it was fun. I kind of got the sharp shooting stuff from Bodno. There, I hit 104 threes in the time I was there for that 1 year. Seward, it was a little different. He played the five that played best together, not the best five. I had my times where there were times where I didn't play, didn't really complain about it. Tried to control what I could control, which was come and bring energy if it was off the bench. And then that kind of carried into the second half of the season where I started playing a lot more. And I just kind of I got that mentality of if I want to keep my minutes and I want to be able to play a lot, then I need to be able to try to shut anyone down, play with a whole bunch of energy, dive on loose balls, kind of just make things happen. It kind of carried.
So you mentioned you had I'm just curious, did any of those guys, you mentioned a couple 7-footers, did you play with anybody there at Seward that went on to have a good career?
Most of the guys that I played with, they ended up going Division 1 to Division 2. Some of the other guys they ended up switching out because, again, with a coach as passionate as that, not everyone will agree with him or not anyone can play for coaches like that. So like some guys end up leaving and going to schools like other JUCOs and had great years. Like I have a couple guys that left and one became in NJCAA Division 2 All-American. Another one came his Conference Player of the Year. And those were guys that didn't play at all for us, like when we were at Seward. And they just left and just turned everything around. The guys that did come back, I think most of them went D1, and then one of our 7-footers played overseas in his home country. So yeah, it was a talented group.
Yeah, I'm looking through. Did you play with Neam Stevenson or was that the year before?
That might have been the year before.
because he ended up. Yeah, I'm just doing this on the fly, Terrell. I'm looking through their
No worries.
transfer list. Looks like the latest they have for transfers is guys from 15. But anyway, so it was obviously a pretty good program because if you look through their list, they send a lot of guys to larger schools and several NAI schools. So you came out of Seward County. That was down in Kansas. Talk about how you ended up at Jamestown. What brought you to Jamestown University?
So coming out of Seward, I had a D2 offer to Harding University, and then I lost that offer because I waited too long listening to people about, you should just wait on going to play D1 and, try to see if you can get some other schools and everything like that. That offer will always be there. And that's when I kind of learned, coaches don't wait. Like they're talking to other people and, so I ended up losing that offer.
Okay, but can I stop you there just for a second? Anybody who's in high school right now, don't put a coach off. Sorry, I took you off your story there.
No, you're fine. I've seen it, like even from friends back home and everything. It's just the mold of around, especially around the cities, is D1 or nothing, and that mold I feel like it shouldn't be accurate.
Absolutely.
So I lost that offer. I thought, I guess I thought at the time, who knows, this might be okay. I might end up getting something else. Nothing ever came for a while. I ended up going back home. Probably say a month or two later, I started getting calls from NAIA D2s, from kind of around like Missouri area or Kansas, Jamestown. And the reason, and it's funny because I was home and our coach from that year when we went 29-6, our assistant coach, Coach Taylor Jones, he was my assistant coach at Botno, but for that second semester. That guy right there, he's never lied to me, he always told me everything straight up. If I was playing bad, he would tell me. If I was late for class, he'd be there the next day to make sure I got there on time. Like he really cared, and it definitely helped me. So I knew that, and I knew that, I knew him, I knew I trusted him. Coach Neville started to contact me, but before that, Coach Jones was putting little nuggets in my ear. And the type of person he was, Coach Jones was always talking to me. I had a chance to talk to Coach Peterson, and again, it was like Botno, where it was back in North Dakota. I was kind of accustomed to the weather by then, so I said, you know what, I'm definitely going to do it because I know Coach Jones, and I know he's on the coaching staff, and I know him. So I know I'll be fine. I know I'm going into the right situation, and I know I'm playing for the right coaches if Coach Jones is speaking so highly on it. So I went blind. It's funny how you talked about if I had to talk about Jack Frazier, he was my roommate our junior year coming in. I'm from the East Coast, he's from the West Coast. We didn't know anything about each other, but as soon as we met, we clicked. Still my best friend to this day, and we clicked instantly. And it's been all she wrote. It's been 1-2 tandem all junior year. We come off the bench. I talked to Coach Neville and basically brought me to the office, told me, I hope you don't mind coming off the bench or anything like that, because we have guys that's coming in, seniors, Kevin and John, and you remember the year they had for us, and I had no problem with it. I told them that immediately. I said, I don't mind coming off the bench. I don't mind anything. You're not going to catch attitude out of me coming off the bench or whatever. I'll do whatever I need to do, or whatever you need me to do, and I'll do it. That's kind of sent us into my junior year. So,
Terrell, your first season there at Jamestown, I mean, what an unbelievable year. You went 29-6, and you capped that off. You had that huge win over Morningside in the GPAC tournament. You took home the GPAC tournament conference trophy. Talk about that night. How fun was that night?
That was one of the most fun nights I remember from that year. It was just so surreal how we got into the GPAC that year, and the whole thought throughout the entire year was, oh, the GPAC doesn't think we're anything, because we just got there. We got ranked preseason 9th, so we used that as fuel. And then by the time we got all the way there, we already had eyes open and be like, oh, Jamestown is really the real deal. So it kind of put the icing on the cake, basically, when we beat them. And it was sweet because they became an unexpected rival. We don't usually play them much, or we didn't usually play them before, I guess. but they became a rival, and it's been a fun rivalry. So like that year, it was just we were the only team in the GPAC that beat them twice in a season. Our last game for our senior night, we beat them, and then we beat them again. And it was just funny to talk about it now because I remember distinctly what one of their players said. We were walking down the line, and he said, "We'll see you again in a week," because they knew like we were gonna make it there. And we saw him again that week, and we ended up beating him in overtime. And that was just so bitter. It was just so sweet. It was just a great feeling. Like,
that
we were all
that was
exploding.
that was a really good team. I mean, you had it was Oberweiser was on that team.
We also had guys that didn't play, but they were such a huge part of our team, how we practiced. And because when it comes down to basketball, we all know, especially guys that play, it's 1 through 15 are just 15. Number 15 is just as important as number. So on our team, so we held that, and those guys really pushed us, really pushed us, and I feel like it just prepared us for moments like that. And then we also had a confidence and swagger about us back then. It was just second to none. So we went into that game knowing that we can win this game. We didn't go in there thinking like, oh, it's Morningside. They haven't lost here in about 2-3 years.
So that year you made it to Sioux Falls. You made it to the national tournament. You were ranked 13th in the nation. You won the first round. Who did you beat in the first round?
We beat, what was the first team we played? Southeastern from Florida.
Yeah, so you beat Southeastern, and then you went up against Spring Arbor, eventual national champion. It was a one-possession game right up to the end. I mean, what do you remember from that game?
I remember we went into that game. It was, I believe, it might have been an early game. Can't remember how early it was, but we were ready to play. We were rolling at this point. We beat Southeastern. We got, as soon as we saw our matchup, we went to the gym for our practice time, had a good practice. Came into that game. We came in a little flat because we ended up down about 17. But the one thing that I remember was Coach Neville saying, like, he never thought, especially at the end of the game, he never thought that we were going to lose not once or stuff like that. It was just all, I believe we were going to come back. And that was how all the huddles were. When we, during that game, even when they went on their big run and everything like that, that was how the huddles were. It's like keep pushing, keep grinding, keep chipping away. And it slowly started to come back to where the last 2 minutes of the game, we were like tied, basically, coming off Kevin's unbelievable performance as usual, hitting those 2 clutch 4-point plays late game and just trying to ride it out. And we kind of just ran out of time. We ended up losing by 4. And that one stung because, especially when we heard they ended up winning the national tournament, that one stung because we were just 4 to 6 points away.
Yeah.
And that could have been us, It could have been us.
Yeah,
so,
you guys had a heck of a team. And, I've talked to several Spring Arbor guys, and they all mentioned that game. That was their big hurdle getting to the championship.
Yeah.
You gave them everything they could take.
Yeah. Credit to those guys because that program is unbelievable. They're very well coached, and you can tell it's a player-led team, which those are like the best teams you can have. Big ups to those guys for winning that year. But it was just, that game was just so fun too. And we were all locked in, especially when everything got really, really close. We were all locked in and just, we couldn't get it out. But that game was very fun for us too.
You play at one of the nicest facilities in the NAI. Do you guys realize how lucky you are to have Harold Newman Arena?
I told myself that once the day when I stepped on campus, because that's one of our recruiting tools also.
Oh, I bet.
That's one of our recruiting tools. Like, you see that gym and it's like, wow, I want to play here. You see like some of the facilities. So I never really took it for granted. As soon as I got there, I was like, I'm blessed to play in here. Like, I've never played in the gym this big. I've never played like around fans like how we had it. Our fans are second to none. Well, we wouldn't have been able to win a lot of those games without them too. So
yeah, hats off to the Jamestown, obviously the Newman family, but the Jamestown fans, the Jamestown boosters. A lot of that money was private money. hats off to the community there for putting that facility together. So
Oh
you
yeah.
you went to high school in Orlando.
hmm
Did you key in on the Dakotas because of the beautiful weather?
No, actually, I didn't think I was gonna go anywhere, and it just so happened that the first school I that contacted me, the first and only school that contacted me was from North Dakota, and I was like, I've never been here. I've never seen this amount of cold before. I've never seen this much snow before, but I just went. I was like, I'll adapt. I just went. So coming into Jamestown, it was kind of like, okay, I know this feeling, and I know the feeling of this cold and everything like that. So I don't have a problem, and I was comfortable up here, so I didn't have a problem coming back.
So Terrell, let's talk about this season a little bit. It was a disappointing season. There was so much anticipation for the Jimmies. I think you were ranked 16th in the nation, if I remember right. You
Yeah,
started
starting
out
off.
7-1. The team showed a lot of promise. How did your team feel heading into GPAC play?
We felt amazing, actually. What we did over the summer was the real reason why we were so excited this season because with the exception of one or two guys, we all came back over the summer and grinded and worked out and 6 a.m. lifts and conditioning and playing and just that bond time together. And we were just a close team, closer than ever before. And we coming into that season, we were just like, this is going to be fun. Like our leaders, basically, our seniors that year, me, Isaiah, Frazier, we were just kind of just super excited to get started. We played in our open gyms at the beginning of the year, and we were like like we were just having fun with it, clicking on all cylinders. So when we started the year, everything felt okay, and then we played that first game, thinking, past glories and everything that we'll be fine, we can work through it, and then we ended up losing our first game of the season, and it was kind of like a shock to us because we weren't used to like that feeling, especially so early. So like it didn't rock anything. It was just get back into the lab and try to really figure it out because now it's led by new personnel and we have new guys that we have to kind of be there for and walk through some things. We played the rest of the games, non-conference games, and we won them. Like they were good to win. Some games were closer than others, but when we got into GPAC play, we didn't know at that time. We didn't really know. We just knew we had to be better and try to play together better and everything like that. So first game of GPAC play, we ended up playing Don't. That game I remember one of the most clearest because we got there, we didn't know what to think, and then we ended up clicking on all cylinders, shooting like 75% from the field that whole first half and leading them by like almost 40. And then we were sitting there like after the game, like, wow, like that's Jamestown basketball. That's how we play. We had to remind ourselves that. And as the season went, we've had our ups and downs, and it was interesting to tackle. But that's kind of the beauty of basketball. Like you never know what can happen and how the ball bounces, and all you can do is just try to control what you can control, and just stick together as much as you can. So that was that kind of season to really learn. But it was a different way of learning. It was more learning by losing and trying to work through things and figure it out, and just trying not to give up and just pushing through. And that was the type of season it was. And I still wouldn't trade that season for anything just because, like, with those guys, those moments, those bus rides, the hotel trips, all that stuff was just fun.
After you mentioned Doane, after you played Doane, then 3 tough games. You had Dakota Wesleyan was at full strength. They beat
hmm
you at home, and then you had to go to Northwestern. You fell, and then Mount Marty, which really was starting to surprise people at that point. You
Yeah.
lost to them on the road. At that point, you lost. All of a sudden, I mean, you're 1-3 in GPAC
Yep.
going into December. I mean, was it kind of oh? Were you worried?
I wouldn't say we were worried. We weren't worried about anything else but trying to figure out a way for us to gel better and just like talk through things, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So that was kind of where we're at that point where we just had to figure out our identity for this year's team, not last year's team. It's a whole new team. It's every identity for each team is different. Like the personnel is kind of the same but different, but that was kind of where we were at that point. And I remember Coach Noble came in on a weekend and we were there for like film and a meeting, and he just kind of said, all right, let's scrap everything and just restart and just, try to figure it out. And he was like, and he always tells us every day, I believe in you guys. I really do. And he'll just, and that, I know that was on his mind a lot. And so we just tried to stay together and practice as hard as we could.
Terrell, in that November December time period, you started to have injuries. Mason Walters got hurt. You had also, I think, pneumonia went through the team, and several guys got sick, and then that's a hard thing to come back from.
Oh, yeah.
How frustrating was that period there where the injuries and the illnesses started to take their toll? You were trying to fight through it.
Yeah, that was one of the toughest stretches that I've had playing college basketball. Mason goes out. He played the game before, and he said, my toe hurts. Like we would be in the hotels at games right before he got hurt, and we'd like be icing our feet and everything like that. I'd be icing my ankle because at the dome game I rolled my ankle pretty bad, and so I'd be icing that. His toe was broken that we didn't even know about. He couldn't play. They put him in a boot. He couldn't play for about 9 games.
Yes.
But he sat there and was one of our biggest cheerleaders, and just, it was a big hit though, losing him with the amount of that kid just has a knack of finding where the ball is at all times. He's always around the basketball. They come off the rim and he's right there. And it's just crazy to think his upside is just ridiculous. He has a chance to be a Jamestown great immediately. It's been a pleasure to watch him.
Terrell, that's funny you say that because I've talked to a lot of people about Mason Walters, and when you watch him, it's almost like the rebounds are almost effortless. He just seems to be where they're going to roll down to him. And just
exactly.
for people who didn't follow Jamestown or didn't follow Mason Walters or some of the other great freshmen in the country, before he had the injury, this young man was averaging a double-double, averaging as a true freshman. One of the best rebounders I've ever watched. He just has a nose for the ball, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just crazy to watch that, and we got used to it. He had games against Dickinson State. He had 24 and 18 rebounds as a true freshman, and that was wow. And we had a running just a run-on joke with him. We were just calling him hey, you're I see you like to pad your stats with those rebounds. He just throws it back, gets it back every time, get 4 offensive rebounds in one possession, put it back. And the funny thing about Mason is just his game is so simple, but yet so effective because he can score on his own, and he doesn't need us to score. He doesn't need plays ran for him to score or to grab rebounds and just put it back up. So it's just a natural talent for him to just have a nose for that ball and block shots with his length. And he's a lot longer at 6'8". 6'8" is pretty long, but he's a lot longer than people give him credit for, and he's a lot smarter than a lot of people know because of how he moves and plays. It looks like he's barely moving out there, and then all of a sudden you look at the stat sheet and he has 18 rebounds.
Exactly.
17, 15, and you're like, what? So it was just interesting to watch that.
Well, you talked about Mason Walters. We got to talk about some of these other guys you played with. Brock Schramm, Isaiah Dobson, Jack Talley, Brady Birch. I mean, these are tough guys.
Oh, yeah. So we'll start off with Jack Talley, one of the most versatile scorers that I've seen. And he keeps his game pretty simple, too. He has a nose to score the ball. That's him. He has a nose to rebound the ball. He's one of the better rebounders. He was definitely one of the better rebounders in our conference. Turns into a monster on the scoring end because when he's clicking and he's hitting shots, and he's 6'5", and he's solid. He can post up also and get to the rim. He can dunk on people. It was fun to watch him really kind of blossom into what he is now and blossom into that first team all-conference this year from last year. And it was nice to see and watch how much he grew and how he learned how to really score the basketball in different types of ways. And he could have did it last year, but again, playing behind John, Kevin, and playing with those guys, just, hey, if it's working, it's working. If we're needed as far as scoring, because it's a team effort, needed a scoring, it's then we step in, score, do this. But this year it was like we're kind of on no man's land, and we just have to try to score and just be the best players we can be. So Jack Talley definitely, he was pretty consistent for most of the year. Then he ended up getting sick. That's how that stuff. And then Isaiah Dobson, so much I could say about him. He's so misunderstood by a lot of people just because of the energy he brings and like how he is. But that man is a competitor, 100% competitor. He will die on the court. He will die on the court. That is Isaiah Dobson. He will die. He will do all the little things, dive on loose balls. He'll take a bunch of charges, and that was his identity for most of those years, was a defensive player that did all the little things and a point guard that was there to distribute the basketball. And this year he turned out to be one of our better scorers.
Yeah.
And this man, I've like, especially around late game, it was crazy to watch like some of those games that he would have like 9 to 12 points in a few seconds. We played Morningside at home this year, and he ends up with like close to 30 against Morningside here. And it was just crazy to watch that growth and watch him score the ball like he did and all the confidence that he had on offense and defense. It was good. It was nice playing for him. He was like our true leader as far as just how to get things done and what to really watch for and what to impersonate when we were on the court. He just did it. He just did whatever was asked for him. And Isaiah's one with a bunch of injuries, like coming from his freshman year, that ankle, and he played through all of that. Like I've never seen somebody with a pain tolerance that high, and he played through all of that. It looks like he was fine. But like I really appreciate Isaiah because of that. Brock Strom, that was kind of a big hit when he went down, but when he was playing, that man is one of the best shot blockers in the country. When his timing is right, he can block whatever. And he's one of the most like athletic guys that can use both hands that I've seen. Brock can go right, Brock can go left. Great rebounder. And it was just fun playing with him because he has so much energy. He's one of those 6'8" guys that can sprint the floor and get down the court in a hurry, finish in different ways, post-ups, dump-offs, whatever you want, Brock will do. He even took a charge this year. And like Brock's a shot blocker, and he took a charge this year, and it was just like that was big time. Brady Birch, the workhorse, that man he kind of embodies what Jamestown basketball culture is. Just go as hard as you can. You have no regrets, and he stepped up big time this year, especially when Brock went down. Brady wasn't used to really starting, and then he comes in starting. First game that he starts gets 25 and like 11. First game that he starts. I'm not too sure exactly what his stats were, but it was just big time. Brady's one of those guys one of those bigs that's a utility big. He'll do all the things, every little thing. Dive on loose balls, take a bunch of charges. He started blocking shots, scoring. He has a great post game, scores both hands. It's just fun playing with him and just battling with him every day because I know he always had my back no matter what. That's just some of those guys. And Jack Frazier, like we talked about him earlier, he's another guy that's just, if you see him on and off the court, he's about business. Like he keeps his like body in shape and he does what he needs to do. Yeah, he had a little bit of a down year, but like we always believed in 100%, always believed in him and what he can do. He's a great rebounding point guard, great offensive rebounding point guard. I'll say that. Great defender. Watching him and how we handled this season and just trying to fight through all like everything that was going on kind of brought me and him a lot closer together too.
Terrell, I got a question for you. Who talked Isaiah Dobson into cutting his hair? Because he was a lot faster after he cut his hair.
I don't know. I guess it was just a trend that most of the guys would just go out and get cuts. And I remember we were just in the gym and he comes in with a haircut. We're just like, what's going on here? We weren't used to that, but it took a little while to get used to. But it was just it did feel like he was a lot faster.
So Terrell, what did it mean to you in your life to be part of Jamestown basketball?
I always say this, and it's easily one of the best decisions I've ever made. I would never take that back. That is one of the best decisions I've ever made. Playing for a coach like Coach Neville, and just like how much he cares about his players. Like there's coaches out there that will say they care at first just to recruit you, and then they don't really care. No, Coach Neville is one of those coaches that is real deal. He cares. He will even talk to you like on a regular off days just to find out how you're doing, if you need anything. All it trickles down to all our coaching staff and how much they care and how passionate they are. So playing for that and gave me the utmost confidence to just be myself and just play. He told me that and coming through. So it definitely helped me as a player playing for guys like that. And then our culture of how close we are. A lot of people don't know, like our teams, last year's team, this year's team, no matter what the circumstances, we're this was the closest team I've ever been on in my life. By far, at all levels. That's just how we are. Like any mishaps on the court, we never take it off. Something will happen in practice, and then two people go after it, because everyone's intense. Everyone's like,
Yep.
after practice, it's, hey, where do you want to go eat? Like, and then everyone's just talking. So like that, just being around that atmosphere and just being around guys that are positive, pushing you to be better, and will always hold you accountable for your mistakes. And they weren't holding that back. They'll tell you like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that better. Like, and it was like that because we even had input from some freshmen, true freshmen, and we just never took anything to heart. We just listened to it. Like, okay, yeah, you're seeing this. I'm going to try to work on that. You're seeing this. Oh, you're not playing as hard as you should. All right, then let's play as hard as you should. And it's a big help when everyone's in tune, everyone's holding each other accountable. And this was one of those teams that's what we did. We held each other accountable. Last year, this year, we just tried to work through everything.
Terrell, you mentioned Coach Neville. I've had the opportunity to interview him a couple times. I thought he was a heck of a nice guy. You were able to get him his 100th win at Dakota Wesleyan this season at Dakota Wesleyan. That must have felt good.
Oh, that was
in the Corn Palace.
In the Corn Palace, that was an amazing feeling. That was the game that started off our like 4-game win streak, I believe. But it might have been the game before that. But we came in there with that same swagger, and we just knew like, okay, we know what we need to do. We know our game plan. Funny enough, talking about it now, our game plan was to try to limit Ty Hoagland and let his other guys like kind of do the scoring load, and it ended up turning out the other way. And so Ty went off, and then we had to limit the other guys. And then so when that ending buzzer sounded, and we knew like at that point it was too late for them to come back, it was just a great feeling, especially for Coach Neville and everything that he does for us. That was big time for all of us to get him that win. Especially at a place that we've never won before. He's never won before, so it just made it even more sweeter.
Let's talk about 180 degrees from that feeling. In the playoffs, you go back to Dakota Wesleyan. You played 39 minutes. You score 16. Ty Hoagland drops 33 on you, and the reality of the Corn Palace comes to life. And your career ended. Just how tough was that loss?
Definitely the toughest that I've had playing college basketball, because at that point, right when there's like a minute or two left and we're down by like a little bit more than 10, we've tried to fight back for it. But when you get that realization that it's over, like with 30 seconds left and we're down like 10 or something like that, then it just kind of all set in. There were a lot of tears, a lot of, hugs, and just, it was a disappointing way for our season to end. Like, we didn't have all our guys. Tally didn't play that game. Brock couldn't play. So we had to just rock with what we had. We had our guy, Devin Schultz, come in and be big minutes that he had. He stepped up when it counted, but we just fell short, and it was just a sucky feeling, just because knowing that it's your last college game ever, and you don't know what's next or anything, that just kind of hits you from the moment that buzzer sounds off, and all the emotion that you hold in all college just kind of pours out. No matter winning, losing, like, it just kind of pours out, because as a senior, it's over.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's got to be a tough moment.
Especially
on the road. It's got to be a tough moment.
Yeah.
So Terrell, what's next for you after college basketball?
So one of the things that I really want to do is try to pursue playing overseas. Like, I've had that dream since I was a little kid. So I'm going to push myself as hard as I can to try to make that a reality. But I'm also a business major, so I'm also trying to see where I can kind of place a foothold in the business world, and see where I can work and how to get better at certain things, and see what jobs are available out there. So I have a backup plan just in case, that doesn't work out. But
No,
that's
absolutely.
always,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And if you have that dream, you should definitely pursue it. And like you say,
hmm
you always have to have that backup plan because basketball ain't going to be there forever. But no,
exactly.
I think that's great. You don't want to look back when you're 50 and say, what if, right?
Yes. And it's
Well,
crazy because if I can do it all over again,
you talk about that last loss and how bad, but, and I know this doesn't help, but the majority of college basketball players, their career ends with a loss.
yeah,
You should be very proud of the career you had. I mean, you made your mark at Dakota State Botano. You made your mark at Seward, and then you definitely made your mark at Jamestown and in the NAI. So you had a very good career.
so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, Terrell, I appreciate you being on. Thank you very much for giving me all this time. And be safe. Take care of your family, and good luck in whatever direction you decide to pursue.
Yes, thank you again for having me on.